In Chapter 1, we discussed some of the needs as far as what responders need to do to remain safe on scene. But now we need to discuss some of the planning and communication coordination between other agencies. We're going to talk about the National Unified Goal a bit more, but we're also going to discuss planning and reducing the amount of time we spend on scene, using common terminology, especially when working with other agencies who may not know our codes and lingo. This will help our efforts to improve communication between several agencies. We also need to be able to recognize our biggest threat in areas in our service area, which highways have the lowest visibility, which do poorly in bad weather, which have hidden intersections. When we first think about responders, we often think of police, fire, and EMS, but we need to remember a couple crucial members of the team. Towing and recovery play a huge part of highway safety because they are the ones we turn to clear our roadways quickly and effectively. The towing industry is extremely supportive of our training efforts, and it's really important to think about creating joint training opportunities that include towing so that they can also learn how first responders operate and what our needs are. Our communication centers are definitely the lost heroes. They are the first to receive notification of incidents and are responsible for providing us with the basic assessment of the situation over the phone. Based off of their assessment, comm centers need to know who to dispatch and what other resources are available. Communication centers get information from a variety of sources. They need to know how to respond to phones, mobile data computers, radios, and even videos. Part of the initial incident communication is verification. This requires gathering enough information about the initial incident, including specifics such as type and level, exact location, how many vehicles involved and their descriptions, how many lanes of traffic are involved, and if there are any obvious injuries. This information gives dispatchers a good idea of how many responders to send, what type of trucks and equipment might be needed, and how many medical personnel might need to be dispatched. Sometimes responders get on scene and find that the incident is actually in a different location than originally reported. Responders are obligated to inform comm centers of these changes and report the exact correct location. Not only is it needed for documentation, but it's also necessary in case units or responders arrive later or are called as additional units, or if there's an incident and a responder is injured. Accurate locations means quicker responses. Upon first arriving on scene, an immediate arrival report should be given to the communications center to confirm the geographical location, approach specifics for later arriving units, as well as any other pertinent information that can be determined at first glance. This report is typically given while still in the vehicle and viewing the scene through the windshield, and is often referred to as the windshield size-up. A more detailed and accurate size-up should be provided after the responder has more fully assessed the scene. A detailed size-up should be conducted within 15 minutes of arriving at the scene of an incident. For the duration of the incident, additional progress reports should be communicated at regular intervals to provide an update on how response and clearance activities are progressing. So let's review a windshield size-up report. I might give this sample report, making sure to include these key points. Unit 24 to headquarters, we're going to be westbound I-40 just east of Garth Brooks. At this time there appears to be 2 cars and 1 semi involved. One vehicle has significant rollover damage. We're going to close the inside and center lanes and we'll be establishing command just west under the check hall overpass. Please advise if air vac is available for standby until further. This ensures that I've specified the incident, how traffic is affected, and I've already given dispatch an idea that other resources may need to be called upon. This is a photo of a transportation management center. The TMCs are typically responsible for monitoring traffic conditions using closed-circuit television cameras, roadway detectors and congestion maps, public safety contacts via phone and/or computer-aided dispatch links, providing real-time traveler information using the 511 phone systems, websites, and Twitter, dynamic and portable messaging signs, highway advisory radios, monitoring and controlling traffic management devices, including ramp meters, providing traffic and incident information to other traffic management communications, and monitoring traffic signal systems, etc. Coming back to the National Unified Goal, the goals established by the responder team, including towing and communications, are to reduce traffic congestion, increasing responder safety, promoting safe, quick scene clearance, and increasing prompt communication. Here we see a diagram showing us some common causes of traffic congestion. Perhaps it's no surprise that bottlenecks are the highest percentage. Anytime traffic has to merge into lesser number of lanes, it tends to create backup. Traffic incidents follows behind that, with bad weather taking the third place. Now this is a handy piece of information to know. According to the National Traffic Incident Management Coalition, for every minute that a freeway lane is blocked during peak travel times, 4 minutes of travel delay results after the incident is cleared. This chart shows us which traffic lanes cause which amount of traffic impedance. So, with a shoulder blocked, we're going to inhibit traffic flow by 70%. But as we move up, we see with 2 lanes blocked, we impede traffic by 83%. And not surprisingly, when we block 3 lanes, we're looking at 100% traffic impedance. One of the ways we've discussed to help prevent on-scene incidents is to have clear communication, especially between different agencies. Part of that process is becoming familiar with common terminology that is used during incidents so that everyone is clear about locations and details. Now this photo shows us how shoulders are named depending on which side they're on. So the eastbound lane has the eastbound shoulder, westbound lane has the westbound shoulder. This photo gets a little trickier. If we are dealing with a turn lane, that is named depending on which direction the lane is in. So this is the eastbound left turn lane. It is on the eastbound side, and it is a turn lane, and it is turning left. Here we see that we're dealing with a 4-lane divided highway. Lanes are named from left to right, just like reading, starting at the median. Whether I'm discussing westbound or eastbound, I still need to clarify which lane I'm in. Lane 1 is your inside lane. This is the lane closest to the median. Lane 2 is the outside lane, and then your shoulders are named for right and left side accordingly. Now we also need to clarify in which direction my highway is headed. I could be on I-40, but you wouldn't know if I was westbound or eastbound unless I clarified. Now if I were working on a 6-lane highway, I could call out my lanes by using left lane, center lane, and right lane. However, if I'm dealing with a large 8-lane highway, I have 2 center lanes. So starting from left to right, you can see I still have my left shoulder. This is also sometimes referred to as the inside shoulder because it's towards the inside of the highway. Left lane, left center lane, right center lane, and the right lane and right shoulder, or outside shoulder. Now sometimes agencies will use a numbering system for lanes. Again, moving from left to right, you would start with the number 1, then 2, 3, 4. This would be called out over the radio as the number 1 lane or the number 3 lane, etc. So let's throw a loop in here. If there's a high occupancy vehicle or HOV lane, it should be referred to as the HOV lane, and lane 1 should be the first regular travel lane. If there are HOV lanes in your area, you can use the descriptions below to correctly identify. If there are HOV lanes in your area, you can use descriptions to divide the different types of HOV lanes, such as barrier separated, which is physically separated from other travel lanes, pylon separated, which is separated from other travel lanes by tubular markers, or buffer separated, which is separated from the adjacent general purpose lanes only by a narrow buffer area, maybe with longitudinal pavement markings. And then you have your contiguous lanes, which is separated from the adjacent general purpose lanes only by a painted lane line. So here we have a crash scene, and the incident appears to be in the left shoulder. Traffic is flowing in its normal direction compared to the crash site. Now traffic in this area is upstream traffic. Think about how a river flows. This traffic is a normal flowing pattern flowing toward the site. Now, this traffic that is flowing past the site is referred to as the downstream traffic. The traffic queue is a term describing the backup of traffic that results from an incident or blocked lanes. Think of any type of holding queue. This is typically where something is waiting to be resolved or handled. This traffic queue is where traffic is waiting to be able to pass. A gore is a triangular piece of land where roads merge or split. Think of on-off ramps. There are two ways we need to think about gores. A theoretical gore is the place where a ramp or turn lane starts to separate, but it doesn't have an actual physical barrier, maybe like a white painted area before an exit ramp. A physical gore is an actual barrier that prevents motorists from crossing. This would be like barrels or concrete walls. Now, there are a couple terms with which we should become familiar. First, a service road, which maybe is an access road or frontage road, is a road that runs parallel to a main road or highway and gives access to houses or businesses. These are the smaller roads you might find when you exit a highway and cruise down to find a gas station or fast food. Often on-ramps are roads that lead off and onto main highways, respectively. Now, a distributor or collector road is a road that connects main highway roads. These allow a single highway exit ramp to direct drivers into two or more crossing roads. This also collects cars so that they can enter the highway at a single ramp. Lastly, an overpass is a bridge that crosses over another road, while an underpass is a road that passes underneath another road. So now take a few minutes to think about how you would describe this incident location to dispatch or other responders. This incident is on North Highway X on the off-ramp to westbound Highway Y. This one might be a little tricky to see. How would you describe this incident location? This one is actually on the westbound service road just before or just east of the Highway X southbound off-ramp. Now, to have successful on-scene responses, we have to learn how to put all aspects together. This triangle shows us some components of successful unified command. We have to have cooperation within our teams and among partnering agencies. We also have to have good communication with each other, not only for incident locations, but for necessary updates as well. We also have to have solid coordination efforts. All responders have to know what is expected of them and their roles throughout the efforts. We have to remember that we are working together with other responders as a team and not as individuals. Proper preparation goes beyond simply studying a course manual or watching a PowerPoint. We have to proactively plan. Training with other agencies is imperative. Tabletop exercises help to simulate real-world incidents and allows participants to work together as though they were responding to an actual incident. Simulations also help responders see how they would respond and what needs to be improved before they encounter an actual incident. Post-incident analysis is crucial in ensuring challenges are managed and workflows improved. By assessing what we could have done differently or even reiterating what went well, we can ensure that the next incident will run that much more smoothly. Lastly, TIMS provides responder education and information to help expand their knowledge of handling these scenes in incident command practices. Safe, quick clearance does not mean cutting the incident duration in half. However, minutes do count, so even saving a couple minutes during each response activity can make a big difference. Safe, quick clearance does not mean cutting the incident duration in half. However, minutes do count, so even saving a couple minutes during each response activity can make a big difference. Responder quick clearance is supported by 3 types of legislation: move over laws, driver removal laws, authority removal laws. Do note that the specifications of these laws varies from state to state. Ways we can keep quick clearance in mind are working with a sense of urgency. We don't want to stand around on scene if everything is done. Once we get the victims managed and everything moved out, it is important to move the responders from the scene as well. Unified command, completing tasks concurrently, continuously assessing traffic control are all ways to promote quick clearance. Responders also need to think about utilizing all available resources to make these scene clearances as quick but as safe as possible. Lastly, again, coming back to the post-incident assessment, it is important to think what could have been done differently and if there was anything we could have changed to have quicker clearance. The second of the three main objectives of the NUG, quick clearance, is the practice of rapidly and safely removing temporary obstructions, including disabled or wrecked vehicles, debris, spilled cargo from the roadway, to increase the safety of incident responders by minimizing their exposure to adjacent passing traffic, reduce the probability of secondary incidents, relieve overall congestion levels, and delay. Think about what safe clearance means to you. The clearance portion obviously means we want to bring the road back to its original state, or close to it. We also want to minimize delays as much as possible throughout the incident. By using all of our clearance resources, we can increase our safety and speed as well. If we ensure that responders and motorists are safe throughout the incident, we don't create further incident, which would prolong our on-scene time and increase injury and number of victims. Something else to note is that it is important to try to do the least amount of damage as possible, especially when we find ourselves having to work on or near private property. We don't want to be disrespectful of our surroundings.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you at this conference this morning. By way of introduction, my name is Tom Martin. I'm the Field Lieutenant for the Virginia State Police in Northern Virginia. I've spent my entire career, 27 years, in Northern Virginia, and I've done that by choice. Many question my sanity, but it truly has been an opportunity for me to learn. Northern Virginia being the second most congested highways in the United States, and having experienced that over the last 27 years, it's given me an opportunity to interact with a tremendous amount of talent and a tremendous amount of dedication to help keep the highways open. We're talking about incident management, and the three keys being communication, cooperation, and coordination. Keeping with that theme, and all the people that I have met throughout my career, I wanted to bring with me today a panel of speakers. Before I introduce the panel of speakers, I would like to just address this group briefly. We're here at this conference for a number of reasons. Some folks are here because you were told to be here. Some were here because it's better than being someplace else. But regardless of the reason that you're here, I think this was an opportunity for us to open our minds and open our hearts to the other players that are involved that we interact with every day. So the panel that I'll bring forth today, we've asked each individual person to identify themselves, state the reason that they're at this conference, state what they hope to learn from this conference, and just give a brief outline of what their responsibility is at the scene of a highway incident. So as I bring forth each panel member, that's basically the way that the process will flow. My name is Pete. I am VDOT. I design the roads, I build the roads, I maintain the roads, I pretty much own the roads. So if it happens on the road, I'm in charge. The reason that I'm at this conference today is perhaps to learn from the organization as to why, when I receive gazillions of dollars from the federal government every year to do pretty much whatever it is I choose to do, we receive little respect when we're responding to an incident. What I would like to have happen is emergency legislation putting red lights and sirens on my yellow trucks. I'm the EMT on the ALS. I'm the fastest one in, I'm the first one out. If it's bleeding, bruised, dizzy, or dazed, I'm in charge. I've been doing this for a number of years, and I have several issues that I would like to address to this conference. One being why, when I respond to an accident scene, I've extricated my patient, I have them tied to a backboard. I have the IVs started and the ringers lactated. As soon as I'm ready to load that patient, I'm approached by a trooper who asks my patient, "May I see your driver's license and registration card, please?" My name's Larry. This is my brother Daryl. My other brother Daryl. We're from Larry, Daryl, and Daryl Towing and Recovery. We've come to this conference for a number of reasons, but first to say that the incidents that happen on the highways don't get cleared until my records clear it. I guess that pretty much makes me in charge. A number of issues need to be addressed when we're dealing with the towing community. First, what I'd like to learn from the participants of this conference is why is it we talk a lot about public-private partnership, and I'm pretty much the only private parts of this public-private partnership. I'm the one that has to pay for my records, which cost as much as fire trucks. I'm the one that has to pay for the drivers to be on standby whether they're used or not. I'm the one that has to pay for all the insurance that the private sector has to pay for their employees. The question comes as to why, if I'm the private part of this public-private partnership, am I the last one called, told what equipment to bring instead of what the problem is? Why, if, excuse me, being the last one called, I'm criticized for when I get there late, and the first call that I get when I get back to my shop is why I have charged so much. My name's Bob. I'm the traffic reporter's traffic reporter. I'm the spy in the sky and candy for your eye. Each and every day I have millions and millions of listeners throughout the region and throughout the free world hanging on my every report. To those millions of people, I am in charge. They're looking to me to get people around, over, and through every piece of congestion on the highway. Now at the conference I hope to gain information as to why I cannot receive accurate and timely information. Just as an example as to what I'm talking about, merely yesterday, there was a two-vehicle crash on the interstate, involved a dump truck and a car. The roadway was blocked. I needed to be able to tell my loyal and faithful subjects how long the roadway would be closed. I approached the fire captain, asked how long will the roadway will be blocked. They said they have detected in excess of 3 ounces of diesel fuel leaking from the truck, have declared it a hazardous material incident, in the process of evacuating 500,000 people, and the road will be closed for a week. I asked the police officer how long the road will be closed. She told me she was finishing writing the ticket, would be done in a couple minutes, and the roadway would be open. I asked the record driver how long the roadway would be closed. I was told. They were told to bring a flatbed when really what they needed was a medium-duty wrecker for a Class 3 overturned vehicle. They had to go back to the shop and get what they needed. I asked the VDOT representative on the scene how long the road would be closed. They said they would conduct a study, do some surveys, consult a slide rule, and get back to me in about 6 months. The question remains, why can I not receive accurate and timely information? My name's Jerry. I am the fire chief, and I am in charge. I've been fighting fires, if it's blowing up, smoking, or smoldering, for 25 years. I've written the manual on incident command. I've managed some of the largest incidents in the history of the world. The question that remains today, as to with all my experience of saving children and kittens, why, when it comes to highway incident management, does everyone feel compelled to tell me how to do my job? My name is Trooper Badass, and I have a number of issues. First of all, everyone professes to be in charge. Well, through my many, many decades of experience in law enforcement, I have learned that nonverbal communication is one of the best ways of getting a message across. So, through nonverbal, I will pose the question to you. Who's in charge? Who's in charge? Who's in charge? And yes, who's in charge? Number of issues that need to be addressed at the conference, one being that of response. The question remains is why, when we have a highway incident, do we respond 13 pieces of fire apparatus from 7 different directions, and we get there, we park every one of them sideways in the road. And Jerry, please do not tell me it's because you have the most and the biggest toys. My name's Rob, and I'm the commuter. I've got my cup, I've got my razor, I've got my paper, and yes, I have my cell phone. In keeping with AAA responsibilities of the responsible driver, we do operate hands-free. I have tremendous amount of complaints to share with you today. I am a taxpayer. I pay your salaries, which pretty much makes me in charge. Each and every day when I'm operating on the highways of this region, I experience problems. I want all those problems to go away. I want nothing in the HOV lanes except me, even though I drive by myself. I do have the email address for the chief. I know Dr. Gridlock personally, and I wish to express to this group today the importance of me, the commuter, who you work for. My name is Gary. I'm your congressman. Each and every one of you is in charge. I appreciate the job you do. I experience the problems you face out there every day.
It is important as responders that we are able to distinguish possible evidence on our scenes. Now, to clarify, not all of us are crime scene investigators, and evidence certainly should not come before treating victims, but we do want to be aware of our impact upon the scene and how that will help bring closure to the victims. Short-lived evidence is evidence that will most likely be destroyed by us working around it or will be gone when the scene is cleared. Critical short-lived evidence might be tire marks, debris, paint transfer, fluid trails, or bodily substances. These things can help law enforcement piece together events leading up to the incident. We see here a dirt tire track as an example of short-lived evidence. This can easily be lost by people walking over it or setting things on top of it. It is important to note that responders should take only actions needed to complete their own area of responsibility while minimally disturbing the scene unless authorized or assigned. If there is ever any doubt if you can disturb something, please ask. Now, in a perfect world, it is nice to let law enforcement review the vehicles before extrication begins. However, this is not always practical or possible due to life safety priorities. Remember, safety and patient care are our main priorities. So the first vehicle to arrive on scene needs to think about safe positioning, establishing command, and meeting safety benchmarks by ensuring safety precautions are in place. There are some things to think about when performing the detailed scene size-up. First, the exact location of the incident. Also, how many and what type of vehicle are involved. The number of injured persons and the extent of injuries. Also, who needs to be extricated. It's also necessary to get a good idea of the extent of the scene. Is this a minor, intermediate, or major scene? On-scene conditions need to be considered such as weather, down wires, visibility, are there any hazardous materials present, etc. We need to consider the traffic conditions. Are there vehicles in the traffic queue? How long do we think we will have traffic control needs, and do we need an alternate route? Also, we need to consider towing and recovery. We need to provide detailed vehicle information so towing can provide the appropriate apparatus. And lastly, we need to consider any additional resources such as Metaflight, crash reconstruction, or the medical examiner. Now, every time you arrive on an incident scene, you have a choice to make. Move the vehicles involved in the incident to a secondary location before being worked, or if the vehicles involved are too damaged to move, work the incident in that place. Driver removal laws have also been referred to as fender bender, move it, and steer it, clear it. The purpose of driver removal laws is to expedite removal of damaged or disabled vehicles from travel lanes to improve safety and reduce associated delay. Authority removal laws clarify the authority and responsibility of pre-designated public agencies to clear damaged or disabled vehicles and spilled cargo from the roadway to prevent the occurrence of secondary incidents and to allow normal traffic flow to resume. With regard to incidents that involve hazardous materials or that require the medical examiner to respond, it is critical that you be familiar with your local jurisdictional arrangements, agreements, timelines, and needs to support mutual understanding. Authority removal laws often contain concurrent legislation or language that protects responders from liability resulting from their actions. This is to encourage responders to move expeditiously when moving damaged or disabled vehicles and/or spilled cargo from the roadway. These provisions are often referred to as hold harmless laws. So take a look at the scene. Would you move it or work it? This is an example of a work it incident. This vehicle is not movable. So remember that driver removal laws require motorists involved in minor crashes where there are no serious injuries and the vehicle can be driven to move their vehicles out of the travel lanes to the shoulder or other safe area before initiating the exchange of insurance information or while awaiting the arrival of law enforcement and/or a tow truck. Authority removal laws provide authority and immunity from liability in general for designated public agencies to remove vehicles and/or spilled cargo. Remember, when possible, moving the incident is preferred since it clears the incident from the roadway and obstructs traffic less, which is a very effective quick clearance strategy. So let's talk about incident command for a minute. Some of the incident command benchmarks we want to implement is to make sure the first vehicle to respond creates a block to make a safe work area as well as command. This vehicle will also deploy traffic control devices if safe to do so. The parking needs of EMS needs to be assessed as well as for later arriving fire trucks and other highway responders. It's also important to ensure high visibility vests and PPE are worn. When blocking, we want to position an appropriate apparatus such as a tanker or pumper. This helps to establish a sufficient size work zone. Incident command needs to make sure all equipment, personnel, and patients are inside the work area as well as proper wheel positioning of the blocking apparatus. Now, when directing EMS responders, we need to make sure they position the rear patient loading area away from the closest lane of traffic. Patient loading needs to be done in the protected workspace. Responders also need to remove traffic control devices safely. So here we can see these safety benchmarks. We have the fire truck properly positioned to create a large blocked workspace. The traffic control devices such as cones and signs notify oncoming drivers of an incident, and the ambulance is positioned so that the patient area is away from the flow of traffic. So if we have a scene where only EMS responds, we need to make sure the ambulance creates an initial block to make a safe work area. EMS should also deploy traffic control devices such as signs or reflective markers. The Oklahoma State Department of Health and Oklahoma Department of Transportation requires ambulances to have reflective triangles to deploy on these incidents as traffic control devices. In an EMS-only response, we still need to ensure responders are wearing appropriate PPE and that the patient assessment and treatment is happening in the protected shadow of the ambulance. However, when the patient is ready for transport, the ambulance needs to be repositioned so that the patient's vehicle is used as a blocking vehicle. And again, when it is time to load the patient, the rear of the ambulance needs to be positioned so that the patient loading area is facing away from the closest lane of traffic. And lastly, in an EMS-only response, we need to again make sure patient loading is done in the protected workspace and that traffic control devices are removed safely. So here is a diagram of using an ambulance for blocking in an EMS loading response. Notice the ambulance is blocking the working scene. However, when the patient is ready to be loaded, the ambulance needs to be moved so that the patient's vehicle is blocking the patient loading area. Now, this crew has moved off the main street and they are using the building as a blocking area. They have also deployed traffic cones for their traffic control devices. Here we see another use of traffic control devices. Now, planning ahead offers us proactive preparation. We can communicate and coordinate and cooperate with other agencies to identify highway safety and threats. It is also important to be prepared for highway construction projects, special events, and planned detours. Chaos or coordination. We can plan in advance, which can provide a safe working environment and coordination efforts, or our failure to prepare can result in chaos.